You're listening to The Green Flag with your hosts, Lukas Wacker and Kyle Cushman.
Welcome back, everybody. The next category we have got for today's year-end award show on The Green Flag, Best Silly Season Move for the 2022 season. This is not going into 2023, who we think could have the best potential. No, this is the guy that moved over from 2021 into this year, into a new seat, new ride, new dynamic, whatever you want to call it. There's no real definitive criteria for that. It's just you had to switch teams over the offseason, essentially, and you could get a nomination for this award. So Kyle went first for the previous one on Top Prospect. I will go first for this one. And coming in at third place for myself here is Kevin Magnussen, free agent to Haas. I think Haas, they definitely had their bright moments this year. Obviously, Kevin Magnussen getting that pole position in Brazil, not ultimately for the race, but for the sprint race, was an unbelievable accomplishment for that team. And I think he brought a new level, a new standard to that team as well. I love Mick Schumacher. I think it was a closer battle than what, people or the media maybe made it out to be between Magnussen and Schumacher, the head-to-head this year. But there's no doubt in my mind that Kevin Magnussen raised that program. The decision to kick Nikita Mazepin out for obvious reasons. I don't need to say more than that. And bring in Kevin Magnussen, a guy that was familiar with the team, had a lot of close relationships with a lot of the crew guys, engineers, what have you, since his time that he departed. Wasn't that long ago he was there, but he elevated that program to a very high level. And they were able to bump up the Constructors' Championship standings from 10th to 8th this year. And I think that that's deserving of a very, very nice nomination here, at least for Kevin Magnussen, a guy that we know has great talent. I think he's able to elevate equipment more than maybe some drivers are. Finished 13th in the standings, 25 points. That's pretty good. And when you consider what he was around, the likes of Pierre Gasly, Sebastian Vettel, that's not too bad in and of itself as well. So Kevin Magnussen, kudos to Haas for getting him. I mean, that was a crazy turnaround there to put him in the car before Bahrain. That was a crazy time. It feels like a long time ago, but I think they did a great job finding a guy that is familiar with the team, and he was able to elevate their program to a larger extent. And they were able to capitalize on that in the first race of the year itself. So Kevin Magnussen gets third place for my nomination for the best silly season move in 2022.
I like that. Number 3 for me is a lot of similar characteristics in terms of somebody that moved teams and really helped the team overall. It didn't end the way that people were hoping, but for me, my number 3 nominee is Kurt Busch to 2311. Won their first non-super speedway, rain shortened, whatever race at Kansas. Had 5 top 5 finishes before he ended up being injured at Pocono. But overall, looking at his success prior to being hurt, he was in a playoff position, even without the win. He was in a playoff position on points. And we saw the level of competition raise from not just 2311, but for Bubba Wallace as well. And the fact that getting somebody like Kurt Busch into the fold helped the success of the team from the second car perspective, the number 1 driver, the long-term future of the driver, and the team overall. For me, all those factors considered, even though he didn't get to finish the season, I think Kurt Busch has set up 2311 to be a successful team into the future. And for that reason, that gets my number 3 nomination.
Great pick. Great pick. Didn't quite crack my top 3. If he stayed the whole year and was healthy, I think I would look at it.
Could have been a candidate for number 1.
Could have been 100%, but obviously unfortunate circumstances there for Kurt. Second place for myself goes to George Russell, from his move from Williams to Mercedes. But this feels like it's been a move 3 years in the making in a lot of ways. And it finally, I think they reaped the rewards pretty heavily this year. Mr. Consistent, didn't finish outside the top 5 for like the first 8 Grand Prix. I think it was, or around that number.
Until his home Grand Prix.
Until his home Grand Prix. It was an unbelievable run of results there for a Mercedes car that really struggled at the beginning of the year. with the porpoising, and for, just being at a lack of power as well underneath the hood. Oh, I guess the hood, but underneath underneath the Mercedes. So I give George Russell a lot of credit. He beat Lewis Hamilton in his first year as well on points. That's no easy feat, and he settled in very, very nicely. I think, if Mercedes was a similar car to what they've been in previous 8 years where they dominated, George Russell could have been the world champion this year. If they had the car. He proved it near the end of the year, getting his first win as well. That is awesome to see for him in Brazil. And he had a great weekend down there in Interlagos. So George Russell definitely deserving of a nomination, just misses out on the award for the best silly season move though.
And I completely agree. I've got him as my number 2 as well. For all those factors, the fact that Russell finally stepped into the Mercedes and beat Lewis Hamilton head to head in the standings. Obviously, people were hoping that was going to be for a championship. Mercedes ended up struggling more than people anticipated, so slipped them down a little bit. But the consistency of just I think it's like 3 races all year long that he didn't finish in the top 5, something like that. It's
crazy.
Remarkable consistency for somebody stepping into the front of the grid for the first time, which we've seen some people struggle with, either the pressure of that or the quality of that. Russell had no qualms about that. So because of that, he's my number 2 as well. And because we've got the same number 2, I'll jump ahead and I'll do my number 1 just so you don't have to talk the whole time.
Shout out to his Hungarian Grand Prix pole too. That was extremely special to watch as well.
Good stuff. And then obviously Interlagos, just fantastic stuff there. Yeah. But the best silly season move of the year, and how about this being the number 1 spot? Ross Chastain to Trackhouse. Who would have thought? Ross Chastain to Trackhouse, finishing second in the championship, second. Just remarkable season from Ross Chastain, becoming either a fan favorite or a villain or whatever you want to call it. It seemed like every headline this year in the Cup Series revolved around Ross Chastain, and whether it be his breakout success, winning, controversies, insane moments at Martinsville, all this kind of stuff. Overall, Ross Chastain, of all the people who moved teams in 2022, he had the most success. And that's crazy to say because it's Ross Chastain and a Pitbull-owned Trackhouse team that we were kind of joking about when they were announced. Props to that team for believing in Chastain. Of course, they brought all the Chip Ganassi stuff, brought people over. They didn't have to bring over Ross Chastain. They elected to, and has paid dividends.
That's my number 1 as well. Ross Chastain sweeps the best silly season move. I think it was almost a foregone conclusion that we were going to give him that. Very well deserved. As Kyle pointed out, I don't think anybody really saw this resurgence of a career or anything like that even remotely on the cards. What he did was beyond phenomenal. Didn't end up getting an oval win besides, road course or super speedway. I think that may be slightly overlooked. I think people forget that, considering how good he was on mile and a half. Was right there for a lot of different reasons in those races. But I'm sure that he'll be a name that we focus on, right out of the gate in 2023, because he's earned that. You finished second in the championship in 1 year. You're hoping to get 1 spot better next year. And if he's able to do that, that would be a remarkable accomplishment. But Trackhouse as a whole was unbelievable. And Ross Chastain, I don't think anybody could have ever predicted what he was able to do. And he sparked a lot of controversy. I mean, I loved it in a lot of ways because it gave storylines and it gave a lot of, texture to the season when it was just feeling, just talking about the next gen car, but he provided that extra bit of storyline that people were following week in and week out. And he lived up to everybody's hype there in that Martinsville final corner and just finished 1 spot or 5 spots short technically of a championship, but he gave it a go in Phoenix. So you can't knock Ross Chastain for his effort in 2022. Big things, maybe in possibly 2023, who knows? But their resurgence this year or breaking out onto the scene was truly remarkable to watch.
Absolutely. Super, super fun combo to watch this year.
Definitely. And that'll do it. Ross Chastain sweeps the best silly season move for 2022.